Well, the trouble is that when you sign a contract to write a book, and is in Harry's case, it was to write a series of books for reputed millions and millions of dollars. You are actually rather obliged to do what the publisher tells you. So if the publisher wants to bring out the uh, paperback edition of Spare on those particular dates, it's up to him. It's not really up to Harry. And Harry probably had no idea that his father would be at the heads of government meeting. I mean, it just wouldn't sort of go into Harry's remit. I wouldn't have think. So I don't think I think it's unfortunate timing, but I don't think one can lay the blame at Harry's door for that. And as for it dredging everything up again, well, of course, it will dredge everything up again. And whether or not there's any new information, I think that journalists are pretty forensic as far as Harry is concerned, and they'll probably find something to write about that hasn't been written about before. There's plenty of words in that book to go through again. So I think it will. I don't think there's any way it can really be a peace offering that Harry hasn't updated it, as the royal family know more or less what's in the book as much as they cared to find out. I don't think it will come as any surprise. And I think it will be hard to rewrite the same stories. I think that, say, all the things that you've mentioned that might be particularly hurtful, I think probably have been gone through sort of meticulously already. So I think that probably they will find some other things to write about. And of course, it's going to be an irritant more than a big upset, I think, because and of course, many more people will buy the book because in paperback it'll be cheaper and it's more portable. So it is very unusual for a paperback to come out without any update, but it does happen, and Harry's obviously got away with it. I think, yes, I suppose you see that Harry could, what normally happens is the author will insert a new chapter. They certainly wouldn't go through the whole book and change things. So a new chapter will be inserted. Well, Harry could have done that. He could have easily done that, but he obviously didn't want to, and had discussions with his publishers, and they decided the way forward was just to leave it. I mean, maybe there will be something we just don't know about it. But I would have thought a new forward or something like that, um, being with Harry being perhaps a little more humble, would actually help soften the blow. But I mean, whatever Harry does, I don't think it's going to make any difference to the situation as it stands as of the moment. Because if there's going to be a rapprochement between Harry and his father, it's not going to happen immediately because his father is so incredibly busy. And it sounds ridiculous to the likes of us, but really his day is already taken up with appointments, and he will have to find time to see Harry. You can't just have a very delicate conversation and a rapprochement in a half-hour slot. The opportunity has to present itself. And I thought for one crazy moment that maybe Harry would go to Balmoral this summer and that would have been the moment. But that's obviously not going to happen. So I don't see there's any possibility of anything happening as far as we can see. Well, it's the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting. This is Charles's first Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting as king. So it's pretty important to him. And I think that I would actually think that everyone there would be the last thing they want to mention or bring up anywhere near the king is the mention of Harry's book. So I don't think it's going to affect him and what he's doing. But as to the publicity back home, these meetings sometimes get a lot of publicity and sometimes they don't. It really depends what's on the agenda. And if it's of a huge interest globally, then it will get publicity regardless of Harry. There's room to write about Harry's book and there's room to write about what's going on in Samoa. So I don't think the two will have a particular clash. I just think it's a rather unpleasant reminder of what has gone on with Harry and indeed Meghan over the past year.
Well, ever since Harry brought out his blockbuster autobiography, Spare, last year, There's always been a fear that he might write a second book, or indeed that Meghan might write a book, and there would be more controversy, which would upset the royal family. And obviously, with the illnesses, the cancer treatments to both the King and to Kate, that's the last thing they need at the moment. But now it's been revealed that he's actually bringing out the paperback edition of Spare in October. Now, this is being seen in some quarters as a kind of olive branch because apparently he hasn't updated it. He hasn't got any new information in there, and I'm sure he's got quite a lot of information he could be using. So some people are saying, is this an olive branch? I don't tend to sort of go for that school of thought. It's actually coming out at a very, very difficult time. It's coming out in October at the same time that the King is due to be in Samoa for the Commonwealth Heads of Government conference meeting. So the timing couldn't be worse, really. And I'm sure it's going to dredge up the whole scandal again and the whole family problems. And obviously, normally publishers would want you to publicise a book. So presumably, Harry might well be doing some publicity for the book at the time. So I really don't go for the olive branch option. I think that this is very unfortunate. I think if there were going to be peace talks, if you like, or any approach for a reconciliation between Harry and his family, be it the King or be it Prince William. He could have come over, he could have spent some time with the King at Balmoral this summer. And of course, we know he's been over twice in recent months and spent very little time with the King, didn't even see him last time when he was over on his way to the Invictus Games in Germany. So at the moment, I think they're still far apart. And I don't see bringing this book out as a reconciliation. There's been a hell of a lot of water under the bridge since the first book came out. There's a lot that he could talk about, and a lot of things that I'm sure he's got up his sleeve. And always get the impression with Harry and Meghan that maybe they've got stuff almost like a club behind their back, which they would use at a later date, so either in an updated version of Spare or indeed in a second book. If relationships deteriorated. But I think he's probably got control over it with his publisher. If he says he doesn't want to add to it at this stage, they will probably accept that. This new paperback version is apparently going to be translated into 16 languages. So it's going to go all over the world. It's going to be in airport lounges. People are going to pick it up possibly for only $10 or £10 here and there. It's going to be much cheaper than the original. I mean, the original was sold for a lot less than its cover price. So it's going to reach a lot of people and it'll bring it to an even wider audience. And so, in that sense, it's only going to make the situation worse. More and more people are going to know about the rift between him and his family, all the things that he's moaned about that happened to him in his life and his upbringing, and how he was regarded as the spare. All his relationships with Camilla and with William. So it's going to increase the number of people who hear about it, and that's not going to help. In recent months, we've seen indications that Harry is perhaps trying to row back a bit. He's got new PR people working for him. I'm sure they've told him that slagging off the royal family is only going to take you so far. You've got to be more positive. And so, if he listens to their advice, I would imagine that he probably will try to tone things down if there's to be any chance of any kind of reconciliation with his father and with his brother. So I think yes, there are indications he wants to do that, but and maybe that's one of the reasons why we haven't got extra stuff in the book. But it's not. I don't think it's going to help bring it out again. We're going to see the original stuff regurgitated, and sometimes journalists even spot things in books that they didn't spot the first time round, and they get lifted out and they get used and turned into big stories, and that could easily happen. So yeah, more people are going to be reading it, more people are going to be picking up on it, and as I say, the timing couldn't be worse because it's at a time when the King, who is struggling with cancer, after all, he's not going to New Zealand on this trip to Australia and Samoa. He's only going to the two countries, not going to Fiji, which was another place which was suggested he might go. And so, therefore, right slap bang in the middle of a very important Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting, this is probably not something they need. Well, the Queen, Camilla, is very much protecting Charles. She doesn't want anything to stress him at all. I think that's one of the reasons why he only spent less than half an hour with Harry when he came over when the cancer diagnosis was initially announced. Didn't see very much of him at all, and then didn't see him the second time he came over. So I think definitely, she's going to want to protect him and keep the stress levels down. And so, yes, I don't think she would think that another meeting with Harry would help in the near future. So I think at the moment the main priority is for him to recover. The main priority is for him to continue his treatment. Similarly with Kate, I'm sure that's the way William feels about Kate as well. So that's their main priority, and I don't think Harry at the moment is at the top of their priorities.